We're going to be tackling the subject of poverty and hunger, and by a result, social inequality. They're huge issues, they're vital issues, and they can be solved. So the question is, why haven't they already? Perhaps we haven't tried the right approach yet, and this could be about to change. A few weeks ago, during the G20 summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil launched a new initiative. It's called the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, otherwise known as the Alliance. It's already up and running, and it connects countries wanting to lift millions of people out of poverty with countries and organizations who are offering the expertise and the financial help to do so. So far, 87 countries and 66 organizations have joined the Alliance, and I'm delighted to have some of them on the stage with me today. May I please introduce His Excellency Wellington Dias, Minister of Social Development in the Ministry of Social Development, Family and Fight Against Hunger in Brazil. His Excellency Luis Alberto Murillo Urrutia, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Republic of Colombia. Welcome. His Excellency Abdoulaye Diop, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Republic of Mali. A warm welcome to you too. And Mr. Carl Schou, Deputy Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer of the World Food Programme. It's fantastic to have you all here today. Minister Dias, congratulations on this new initiative, which I believe you helped design and implement. Tell us more about the Alliance, its aims, and what we're already seeing it do.
Muito bom dia, eu também quero saudar aqui nossa querida Laura, saudar o ministro Gilberto Murilo, da Colômbia, o ministro Abdoulaye Diop, do Mali, aqui o meu querido Cal, do PMA, e em nome aqui do nosso embaixador do Brasil, todos e todas aqui presentes. O mundo abriu o século XXI cheio de esperança de que pudéssemos ter ali um compromisso, não é, com grandes mudanças. Em 2015, o mundo aprovou na ONU a aliança que ficou conhecido como os Objetivos do Desenvolvimento Sustentável 2030,
which took place in 2015, was able to put an end to hunger. There were 25 insightful ideas as part of it, which is to put an end to hunger by 2030. The world was back then very weak, and this idea did not materialize. However, poverty and hunger have deepened since then. The Brazilian president, Silva de Lula, conducted a campaign in 2014 in order to exit Brazil from the poverty map, and we were able to reduce poverty in Brazil as well. We were able in 2023 to, when Brazil hosted or was the president of the G20, the president, Mr. Lula, launched an idea, which is that the G20, or now we are G21, back then the idea was to have all those countries join us in order to reduce hunger worldwide. As you know, 80% of the financial revenues in the world could contribute to these projects aiming at alleviating hunger. We in Rio de Janeiro launched this alliance in the G20 summit. As you know, hunger is a widespread phenomenon. It is all over the world. It is in the benefit of everyone to have this exceptional action at the global level Through education, for instance, we could reduce hunger in countries, especially in schools. The action that we launched was a professional one. It focuses on poor people. After our campaign in Brazil was successful, we have embarked on a number of insightful ideas. Many rich countries could also help in the development of poor countries. Poverty is not the issue of the poor only. This is a global issue since the food production is very large and food could be distributed across all countries, specifically those that are witnessing hunger. We raised awareness among countries so that they help us support the poor. 85 countries have helped, including the EU, the African Union, international organizations, financial corporates, in order to help in our campaign to eradicate poverty and hunger. We have a large number of countries in the alliance, including Qatar and other countries that have joined this alliance, even if they are not within the G20. We call upon the United Nations to help us in this campaign. We established a center that or where a large number of experts help us in our campaign. We visited the US, we visited countries in Latin America, in Africa, and as you know, we in Brazil are close to Caribbean countries. And there are other Arab organizations that have joined board. So everyone is aware now of this global alliance, and the aim is to reach by 2030 less poverty rates. Brazil, thanks to its president, Lula da Silva, was able to reduce poverty by 80%, and this is outstanding. More than 29 million Brazilians were in poverty and hunger. We were able to achieve positive figures by alleviating their poverty and hunger, and this was a phenomenon that was widespread in the previous government. We are working on a number of social projects as part of the campaign that we launched in Brazil. We are working on a project within Brazil. However, we also relied on the assistance of other countries because many of those countries, they know Brazil all too well. By providing job opportunities to people, we were able to alleviate poverty.
To give help and receive help within the framework. And Colombia, Minister Murillo is a founding member, is also one of these countries that will be receiving help and giving examples of lessons learned and expertise. Can you explain how that mechanism works and why this is going to be successful?
Well, first, thank you very much for the invitation. This is a very important topic, and I'm very pleased to be here with the ministers and also with the deputy director, talking about key issue, which is how we can end poverty and hunger. And we are very grateful to Brazil because Brazil created and proposed to the global community a global alliance for hunger and poverty. And the most important is to work together to respond to that huge challenge. And Colombia, obviously, in a very excited way, joined the effort proposed by President Lula. President Petro is very committed to that agenda, and we have very strong strategic alliance with Brazil. And obviously, eradicating hunger and implies that you have to work on eliminating all forms of inequalities, and that's a key priority for Colombia in our foreign policy. And we are looking to see how we can create some spaces to discuss this with the international community. You need not only the state, but also the private sector, civil society, the academia, and you have to mobilize resources, specific resources, to respond to those needs in the short, medium, and long term. And this is what Colombia is trying to do. We were able to get, in the last year, out of monetary poverty, 1.6, almost 2 million Colombians. But it's very small effort compared to the number of Colombians that we have in poverty. And we cannot do this by ourselves. We have some experiences, some lessons learned, but we need to scale those lessons learned and practices, and you need resources. And there are some challenges that we need to connect with fighting poverty, inequality, and hunger. It's like, it's unacceptable that with the development of global society, we still have people that cannot have, at least to have 3 meals a day. It's unacceptable. It's like the reality that we need to confront. And there are some challenges that also we need to connect. I want to mention that. One is the challenge of climate change. And let me give you one example of my own state in Chocó in the Pacific coast. We are doing an extraordinary effort with the international community to give those Afro-Colombians and indigenous communities out of poverty. But just one event, in 1 month ago, a flooding hit those communities. Huge rainy, flooding, and they lost everything. And then we were trying to get to easy funding, rapid funding to respond just to the emergency. And we didn't find those funds because there is not like a commitment from the global north to provide easy resources to respond to the climate emergency. And that's something that we need to connect with this effort. The second is the loss of biodiversity that is key for food security and sovereignty of those communities, particularly in many areas in our countries. The case of Colombia, again, many people really depend on their interrelation with the forest. And we are losing that biodiversity. So that connection also is important. And again, we need some framework for economic and financial justice that is at the global level to really provide the resources that are necessary. The lessons are learned. Brazil provided to the world very good example of how to get people out of poverty and how to feed people. Colombia used those examples in the recent history, and we apply those. But again, we need the resources to scale them up. So this initiative is very timely, because then we can join forces, the global north and the global south, to really respond to the challenges. And we have the expertise. The food program is one that is helping communities in Colombia. We are working with the food program to help communities in Colombia with tremendous infrastructure. But really, I want to point out the access to fresh and new resources and some redefinition of priorities, geographical priorities. We have tremendous challenges in Africa, but also we have tremendous challenges in the Americas and other parts of the world. In the case of Colombia, inequality hit some people more than others. Black people in Colombia, Afro-Colombian, indigenous communities, campesino communities in center areas are more in need than others. So that needs to be taken into account also in this equation. So my last point in responding to this is that we really want the Alliance to focus on concrete lesson learned and experiences, as you mentioned, we are ready to share our experience, but also to learn what is happening around the world to respond to the challenge of ending hunger and poverty in the particular case of Colombia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Minister Diop, poverty and hunger are issues that are prevalent in much of Africa. Indeed, the UN reported that 1 in 5 people were on the continent faced hunger last year. Mali, we should note, is not a member of the Global Alliance yet, but may well join in the near future. What are the challenges that Mali and that Sahel region face when it comes to trying to lift people out of poverty and hunger?
Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I want also to rejoice of being with among some colleagues, ministers from Colombia and Brazil on this panel, as well as my former colleague, Carlos Cao. I used to work also for the World Food Program. It's a privilege. As you said, what are the most pressing challenging for countries like Mali face regarding the issue of poverty and hunger? Of course, the first is climatic, because we are a Sahelian country. By definition, it means that water is an issue, the desertification is an issue. These are challenges for us to be working, even though Mali has significant water resources in terms of assets. We have 2 of the major rivers in Africa, the Senegal River and the Niger River. But the challenge is to make sure that we minimize our dependency on the rainfall, because when it rains, the agriculture season is good, but when it doesn't, it's a challenge. So how can we make sure that we have irrigation systems in place so we don't depend only on God to get rain? But beside these climate issues, which has been a long-standing issue, our biggest challenge today for a country like Mali, in the Sahel, or Burkina in Niger, is really conflict. It's terrorism, it's insecurity, which is driving millions of people out of their homes. And in the central delta part of Mali, which is the central part, we used to have inter-community violence. Terrorists have been coming, attacking villages, burning the farms, and moving people out of this area. And this has been also creating a lot of movement of population and increased even tensions in this area. And we have seen even recently that terrorists have been even blackmailing the farmers, because they have to give part of the agricultural production to the terrorists, who will sell it to get money. So for us, the main driver is really insecurity and violence. Unfortunately, country like Mali, we are forced today to invest about 25% of the government budget to ensure security, because it's an existential threat. Because if there is no security, people will not be able to move around, to farm, or to send children to school. There is no state presence. So for us, it's unfortunate, because this investment that we are making for the army, for the security, we could have invested it in agriculture, or in food security, and other social programs. But unfortunately, this is the constant tension that we have to be obliged to invest in the security, while we could have put it also in the food production. I have to tell you, Mali has significant assets in terms of, because if you look at the delta part of Mali, we have about 1 million hectares available to be developed. Only we have developed 20%, but that was developed during the French colonization to be the bread basket, the food basket for the entire West Africa. It means that we have the capability to feed the entire region if we had that opportunity, which led me from that existential security to the food security, which is also security. It's also very important. As we are looking at the food security, it's linked also to security, because people who are hungry cannot be people who want peace. Because we really need to move into food security, but also even beyond food security, to move into what I will call the food sovereignty, because we need to have the capabilities to produce and to provide food to all our citizens, to everybody, around us. And we need to create, to have smart policies. We need to have investment in the agriculture, starting by the government-owned investment in agriculture, which in my country, the government is currently doing. You know, in Africa, we have this Maputo Protocol, which requires our country to invest not less than 10% of our budget to promote food security and agriculture, which we are doing today. In Mali also, I think we are also subsidizing the agriculture. 75% of the government is subsidizing 75% of the fertilizer to the farmer, so we can increase the food production in the country. And agricultural equipments are also subsidized by about 50%. Because of all of that, I think we have seen significant increase in the food production in the country. Last year, we produced about 10 million metric tons of food in Mali, despite all these challenges. In 2014, we are moving into even 11% of that production, which is quite significant if you look at the context in which we are. Going forward, in a country like Mali, we want to move into really agricultural transformation, mechanization, to be able really to increase significantly this opportunity for our country. We also combine the food production with the cotton production, because where people grow cotton, also they link it to the food crops as well, as because Mali last year has been the second producer of cotton as well. So just to tell you that the issue of food insecurity and hunger is linked to peace in our area, is also linked to investment, not only by our government, but also by our partners, and that we are always in this dilemma. In which security are we investing to make sure that people are safe, but people can grow, people can feed themselves, and then we can create more opportunity and even to have a lasting peace, because hunger also is a political issue, it's a peace issue, it's an economic issue. So all these we are facing in our region. So all these issues are linked to climate, peace, security, and prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Carl, this is a global issue, of course. The UN reports that global hunger rose sharply between 2019 and last year, 2023. 9% of the world's population suffered from chronic hunger last year. That is an extraordinary percentage. Now, the WFP helped shape this global alliance. Can you explain how it is going to be different to existing initiatives, why it's going to work this time, and why it hasn't been done before?
Well, why it hasn't been done before, I wouldn't know. But let me say first, thank you to the organizers for bringing us together on this very important topic. And also a pleasure really to be on this panel with honorable ministers and my friend Minister Diop as well. I think just to begin by underlining how dramatic the global food security situation is. As you commented, over the past 4 years, the number of acutely food insecure, that's people that are affected by a shock, a climate shock or a conflict, has risen threefold, from around 140 million to now over 350 million. So that's a dramatic increase and number. And we are not seeing any tendencies that this curve is changing at the moment. So that's why it's so important, and why we were very proud to be part of this coalition, this alliance, when it was launched by President Lula. And we really applaud Brazil for taking the leadership in drawing attention to world hunger. We see this as an important initiative to draw attention, but also to align different initiatives around and to add momentum and energy. WFP's role in this alliance is, as often is, an operational one, to help implement, drawing on our network of country offices and our operational muscle in the countries where the most vulnerable live. I mean, we are mostly known, of course, for our crisis work, being on the front lines, whether it is now in Sudan or in Gaza, where our teams are saving lives on a daily basis. I would say today my concern is on Syria, where our teams are already operating outside Aleppo to address the needs of the recently internally displaced. That's where we are mostly known for, but we also have an extensive work in addressing root causes, working on resilience, working on climate adaptation, finding solutions to push back on this gap between the needs and the resources. And so that's an increasing also part of WFP's work. And we are represented in countries like Colombia and Mali doing exactly that, working very closely with governments, strengthening national capacities to also be able to reach food sovereignty, as the minister said. I think one unique comment, if we are going to address those root causes, I mean, one important aspect is to really address or to invest in the next generation. And one really unique concept is the concept of school meals. To provide school meals to children, not least in elementary schools. This is a concept that don't only bring a nutritious meal to children, but it also improves school outcomes, educational outcomes. It often brings kids to school, not least girls, and it promotes economy, the local economy. If we do the procurements from local farmers and hire also women from the community into those kitchens. So this is a concept that we've been working on over decades in almost 100 countries, and that we're now trying to push and bring to scale. And here Brazil has also been a leader in creating a coalition that was formed 2021 to make sure by 2030 that we bring a universal school meals to all children in the world. And this coalition has really gotten some fascinating traction. There's more than 100 countries that have now joined. The last country to join was Indonesia, where the president has committed to bring school meals to 85 million children. This is going to have a massive impact in addressing hunger and food insecurity. Why do I mention this? It's because this is, by Brazil, now linked also to the Alliance. And so I think this is an example of initiatives that are out there to address hunger and poverty. We're now coming together under one framework. And so in a way, this is becoming the network of networks to address hunger, poverty, and we are a proud member to see how we can contribute in operationalizing and turning this into action at the country level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am conscious that we have run out of time because we had a very late start, so my apologies that is all we will get the chance to speak about today. But I think we covered that this is an extremely crucial alliance. It's a bold new initiative, and there should not be any hungry people in the world today. We have enough resources. It's just a question of distributing them fairly, and it needs the political will to do that. And it sounds like this alliance, bridging the gap between governments and organizations, sharing lessons learned, sharing expertise, finding out where the needs are, is very well positioned to do that. So we wish you all the very best with this new initiative. Many thanks to all of you for joining us, and thank you very much for listening.